I love a good proposal story. Guys all nervous, girls all excited, surprise, the ring, happiness, etc., etc. So I asked permission, and I would like to open this sermon by telling you my proposal story. How I asked my incredible girlfriend to become my amazing wife. Now, at this time, I was living in Chicago. I had just started my first semester at seminary, and Sarah was still living up in Grand Rapids, and we were doing the long-distance relationship, which was really hard. And so we had talked about marriage, so we knew like where the relationship was headed as a couple, but I didn't feel like I had that element of surprise, because we talked about it, and I really like the element of surprise. So I really wanted to do something to surprise her. And so I thought what I would do is I organized a surprise party celebrating our engagement immediately after the proposal. I was really banking on her saying yes, And so in Grand Rapids that weekend, there was this new thing that they were just starting called Art Prize. Maybe you've heard of it. It's now like this whole big thing in Grand Rapids. It was awesome. And so my excuse for coming into town was, hey, let's go downtown and look at all the art. And so we came, I went, and it was supposed to be a big date night. And the plan was that Sarah and I would go out, downtown, and then her housemates would like decorate the house and get it all ready, and then I'd do the proposal thing, and we would come home, and then surprise, all the family is there. And so it was supposed to be a big date night. Got all dressed up, got my fedora, got my suit on, and then I get out the ring, and the box is so bulky, right? Like when I put it in my pocket, it like stuck out. Like this one, I was like, she's gonna see it. She's going to know what I'm up to, and I really love that surprise. That's what I wanted. And so I took the ring out of the box and put it in my pocket. No, that's not what happened. But with my history with dropping things, this was a bad idea. And so we did it. We went downtown, we saw some art, and then we went to Sarah's favorite sushi place, downtown Grand Rapids. It was like our first date, and it was a whole nice thing. But I got to tell you, it is so awkward sitting there trying to have a conversation when all you can think of is, when do I do it? When do I do it? When am I supposed to do this? When do I do it? When do I do it before we eat? Do I really want to propose and then eat a meal? Or how do I do it at the end? How do I do this? Do I put it in her food? That's a little gross. Do I put it in her drink? What if she swallows it? Do I get down on one knee? What if I drop the ring? And so I'm panicking, and I'm trying to wait for the perfect moment. I'm waiting for that moment, for the skies to open and the stars to align, and like, that's when I'll know it's the moment, right? And before I know it, we're all done eating. And I'm paying the check, and I'm putting my coat on, and we're about to go back out to the car, and I still haven't asked the question yet. And I'm panicked, and I don't want it to be rushed. Like, oh yeah, by the way, real quick. Like I wanted it to be special. And so on the way out to the car, very casually, mind you, I said, well, how about we go for a walk, right? Because I wanted it to be special, and I can't just not ask, because I have a house of people waiting for me. I gotta ask the question before we get home. And so I said, let's go for a walk. Let's go see some more of these art exhibits. And so we walk around downtown Grand Rapids, and I highly recommend that. It's a beautiful town. It's a lot of fun. And so we were walking, and we went down by the river, and it was really great. And finally it hit me. Okay, now I know what to say. I thought of it. I came up with it, And so, hey, buddy, how you doing, Dylan? And so I finally thought of what I was going to say. And so I stopped at just a random spot on the river. And I said, do you recognize this place? Sarah looked around, and I said, you don't recognize this place? She looks around again. She says, should I? And I said, this is where I'm going to propose to you. And then before it sunk in, I got down on one knee. And here we are today. That, gentlemen, is how you ask a woman who is out of your league to marry you. I kept... Yes, she did. She was here today. And so I kept waiting. That entire evening, I kept waiting for the perfect moment, for the skies to open and the stars to align. But that wasn't going to work. You have to make your moments perfect. Today is part 2 of our Christmas series called Advent Wisdom. Today we're continuing our study with King Solomon and his wisdom. And today we're talking about timing. Now, timing is an interesting topic. He's fine. Timing is an interesting topic because there's no limit to the application. It applies to every part of our life. And so we get into our scripture lesson. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the text in the Old Testament was really hard to understand. Like, I read it, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And so in chapter 11, verse 1, it says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." What? Throw your bread into the water? Like, I didn't understand. And so I went and did some research, and what I found is that it's not actually tricky. Once you do a little study, these are very simple truths. Another translation of the Bible says, "Send your grain out over the water, and after many days, profits will return to you." And so what we find is that even though it's sort of odd, it's an odd thing for Solomon to be saying, he's giving us international trade advice. The writer of Ecclesiastes, we call him the teacher. A lot of people think it was King Solomon. That's the best theory that we've got. The teacher, he was not a farmer. He's not a trader. He's not a deal maker. And so what we found is that Solomon is using the metaphor of trade to teach us a very simple truth. Basically, he says, you put something out there, you plant your seed, and you will get a return. You will get the harvest. You put something out there, it's sort of a cause and effect message. Now, this is just solid advice for everything we do in life. Now, they could be talking about actually planting for farmers, but they could also be talking about your life. They could be talking about ministry, reaching other people. They could be talking about how you raise your kids. You pour into them, and there will be a return. They could be talking about how you work in your job. Basically, what verse 1 is all about, it's basically saying, live your life in such a way that tomorrow, or 5 years from now, or 20 years from now, you will be grateful to the younger you. Put something out there, and you will have a return. So that's verse 1. Verse 2, it says, give a portion to 7 or 8, for you may not know what disaster may happen on earth. Again, I don't understand, and so I did a little more research, and I went and looked in my commentaries and all these scholars who are much smarter than me, and basically what he is saying is divide your profits into different places, right? It's like diversifying your portfolio, right? Now, this is very simple advice. Plant your seeds, but don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Life requires balance. A great example of this is exercise. Like working out, taking care of your body. If you only exercise one half of your body, that half is going to be all muscular and fit and awesome, but then you will literally be living a lopsided life. Can you imagine being like all bulky on one side and then not on the other? And even beyond just exercise, bodily health is not one category. It's not just about exercise. It's about what you eat and how you rest and how you work. It's about all those things. Divide your investments among many places. That's what it means. So then we keep going. In verse 3, it says, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. So I guess we're just listing really obvious things. When the clouds are full, they're going to rain. When trees fall, that's where they fall. Verse 4, he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. Now, it sounds deep and intellectual, but again, it's very basic wisdom. If you wait for the wind or for the clouds, you will never get your planting done. Can you imagine a farmer who goes outside and says, it's kind of cloudy over there. I just won't work today. You'll never get the seeds in the ground if you do that, right? Farmers who wait for perfect weather never plant. You can't wait for the perfect moment in life. You have to make your moments perfect. And this goes way beyond farming. That's just kind of the metaphor we're working with, right? This goes into our life. So let me ask you, when is the perfect time to fix your life? Right now, right? When's the perfect time to talk to that one friend about that thing that you've been meaning to talk to them about? Right now. When's the best time to fix your relationship with your kid or your parent or your grandkid or whatever? When's the best time to do that? Right now. He says, don't wait. You don't wait for the perfect moment. If you wait for perfect weather, you will never plant your seeds. If you never plant your seeds, you will never harvest. Wayne Gretzky has a very famous quote. He says, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. I think most of us in our life, we have something on our to-do list, and it's been on our to-do list for years. There is someone we want to talk to or don't want to talk to, or something that we have to address and deal with, and we just don't want to. And it's so hard. We're waiting for that perfect moment, for the stars to align, but we can't wait for the perfect moment. You have to make your moments perfect. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not saying that, you don't consider all your options. Take your time, think it through. But after you have done your due diligence, go. Do it. Don't wait. Get out there and do something. So that's kind of the core of what Solomon was getting at in those couple of verses. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Get out there and make those moments perfect. So then we switch over to our scripture lesson for today. We kind of want to stop in on the story of Jesus. Now, this is a well-known story, right? The angel telling Mary she's pregnant, right? But I want to read it this morning, keeping the issue of timing in mind, okay? It says in verse 31, "And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, and he will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." And Mary says to the angel, "How will this be, since I am a virgin?" How is this going to happen? I'm still a virgin, and not just a virgin, an engaged virgin. Right? There is a man in her life, Joseph. I mean, think about this. If God had moved the timeline just a little bit, if God had come to Mary a couple months before she got engaged, it still would have been a miracle, but Jesus might have grown up without a human father figure. Right? Do you think Joseph would have married the woman who was mysteriously pregnant? Probably not in that culture, absolutely. And then, honestly, if it had been a couple of months the other way, that would have been more convenient too. I wonder if Mary ever thought about that. Oh, man, if he had just waited a couple more months, just waited a year, I would have been married, right? And then I wouldn't get all these suspicious looks. I wouldn't get all these dirty, judgmental things. It's such inconvenient timing. My fiance wouldn't be trying to dump me. Such inconvenient timing. And not just the whole virgin thing, but the census. I mean, you guys remember that there was like a census going on, right? And Bethlehem was just packed, right? If God had just moved the timeline a little bit this way, a couple months that way, they might not be so busy. They could have found a hotel room. They could have gotten some room service, maybe even a doctor. If God had just moved the timeline just a little bit, a couple of months one way or the other. But God didn't wait for the perfect moment. He took the moment that was there and he made it perfect. And actually what we find when we study it a little bit more, we realize that actually it was the perfect moment. It just wasn't the most convenient moment. It was the perfect moment for God's plan. It just wasn't the perfect moment for our human convenience. Mary's response at the end of the day, in verse 38, it says, Mary said, "Behold, I am a servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. The good news this morning is that God perfects every moment. God perfects every moment. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 5 says, "As you do not know the way that the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything." We do not know the work of God who does everything. Simply put, I don't understand God's timing. We cannot understand the activity of God. Let me ask you a question. Do you guys believe in coincidences? It's an honest question. Some people do. Some people really do, and I used to. But the longer I've been in ministry, the harder it is for me to believe in coincidences. The more I've watched as the pieces fall together, maybe it's a coincidence, but man, that's getting hard to believe. And so here's an example. I want to tell you the story of baby Grayson. In my previous church, I was up in the UP for 4 years. And while I was at that church, there was a baby that was born. His name was Grayson. And he was born very, very premature. He was supposed to be born more than a month after Liam, my first son. And he actually came 2 weeks before Liam. And he came into this world with a significant heart defect, and it was really, really scary for a long time. They had to medevac him from the hospital up in the UP all the way down to Ann Arbor, basically on the day he was born, right? They rushed him down to the hospital. It turned out he actually needed a heart transplant as a brand new infant, which is a really hard thing to find. And so that actually went well, and the baby was doing well. Grayson, he's still alive today. But he needed that heart transplant. And so he was down in Ann Arbor, living in the hospital for months. And Ann Arbor's hundreds of miles away from home. And it was just mom and the baby. Dad had to go back to work, right? So Caitlin was down there living in the hospital. And so one of the toughest things was that she was so far away from home. And so the family came to me and they asked, are there any pastors that that might be able to help out, that might be able to care for her while she's down there because she's so far away from us? When they were in the UP, we just showered them with love. We ran big fundraisers and we took care of them. That church came around that family. They had actual family, but they also had the support of our church, just loving this family. And that was really beautiful, but they were hundreds of miles away. It was so hard to help them when they're so far away, and so they asked, who is there? Because now he was starting to do a little bit better. And they were starting to talk about leaving the hospital. But he couldn't go far because of his condition, because of the surgery. He had to stay inside like an hour of Ann Arbor. He wasn't allowed to come home. And so they found Caitlin an apartment in a nearby city called Waterford, Michigan. It's not actually that close to Ann Arbor, but it was inside an hour from the hospital, and that's what they needed. And they came to me and they sent me an email. And they said, do you know any churches? Do you know any pastors in Waterford, Michigan? And when I read, some of you know, my eyebrows went straight up when I got that email. And I said, yes, I do. There is a Methodist church in Waterford. It's a big one. It's a really great church. They do a lot of that kind of stuff. I'll reach out to the pastor. He's pretty cool. His name is Pastor Jack, but I just call him Dad. We were able to hand this mom and her baby to another church, and I knew they were going to be taken care of while they were down there. When they came back, we took care of them up there, but we needed to hand them off. What a coincidence. Another coincidence that I hear all the time comes out of these sermons. Anytime I preach, and some people come up to me and they'll tell me, like, did you know? Did you know about my situation? Did you know that what you said hit me right in the heart? Did you know that that's what I needed to hear today? And I realized that some people think that the whole sermon thing, when it speaks directly to your heart, you think that's me being clever. Let me just pop that bubble right now. All right, I am not that good at my job, okay? I plan my sermons out a year in advance because I'm a huge dork and it makes me feel better to have things planned out, right? I don't know what's going on in your life. I literally have every sermon from now till June planned out. Now, they're not all written yet, but they are planned out, and I don't know what's going to happen in your life that week. And so if there's ever a moment when the sermon is exactly what you needed to hear, I need you to understand that's all God. All that time. Let's give all that glory and all that credit right back up to God. That's not me. I am simply not that good at my job. Do you believe in coincidences? We cannot understand the activity of God who does all things. The last verse of Ecclesiastes says, in the morning sow your seed, and in the evening do not withhold your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. See, the core message for us this morning is that God perfects each moment. And what that means is that we got to get to work. We need to get to work. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moments perfect. We can't know which things in our life God will choose to use for his purpose, and indecision will paralyze us. It will keep us from doing anything. A lot of times there's fear of doing or saying the wrong thing, and it keeps us frozen. It keeps us unable to help anyone. We are afraid of negatively affecting someone. And so we can't decide what to do, and so we just do nothing. Indecision paralyzes us. But the teacher in Ecclesiastes says, don't worry about it. You can't know whether profit will come from one thing or the other, or maybe from both. In the morning, sow your seed, and at the evening, withhold not your hand. Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon. Do something with your life. Let me see if I can explain it like this. Imagine you have a bank account that credits your account with $86,000 every morning. They give you $86,000, but you're not allowed to keep any of it overnight. Every evening, they cancel what's left in your bank account. Every morning, you get a fresh $86,000, but every evening, they cancel and delete the rest of it. And you don't know how long they're going to do this. What would you do besides get a different bank? I don't know about you. I would pull out every single penny, right? I'd pull it all out and make use of it. Go do something with that gift because I don't know how long it's going to last. Use what you have been given. The reality is there is such a bank. We call it time. And every morning we are given a deposit of 86,400 seconds. And we don't get to carry over any of them into tomorrow. Each day we get a brand new account, and if we fail to use the day's deposit to spend our time, the loss is ours. There's no going back. There's no borrowing more money or more time from tomorrow. So spend your time wisely. Now, in the chaos of this holiday season, I want to be careful. I am not encouraging you towards a manic schedule. All right? Sometimes the most important thing you can add to your to-do list is do nothing. Right? I want you all to go home and put that on your to-do list. Do nothing. Turn off the phone. Say no to the Christmas party and just spend some time with your people. Right? Sometimes we need that rest. We need that break from the rest of the world. I hope you find some Sabbath, some rest. That's not what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I'm saying be intentional. Right? Don't fill your life manic, but take your rest and be intentional about that. There's a quote out there. It's anonymous, so I don't know who to give credit to, but I didn't make this up. But it says, "We will master our minutes, or we will become slaves to them. We will use time, or time will use us. Which would you rather have? Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon." This is our application. Get out there and do something with the time that you have. We can't wait for the perfect moment because that's the path to nothing. That's the path to wasting your time waiting for something that does not exist. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect. But of course, as soon as I say that, we all start in with the questions. Oh, but what if? What if this or what if that? What if I do the wrong thing? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I plant the wrong seed in the wrong place at the wrong time? What if I fail? Yeah, that's possible. I want to take a moment and recognize that fear. That's legitimate. I don't want this call to action to be a call to careless action. We should move forward with wisdom. Don't be rash or cavalier. Do your due diligence. Be smart. But once you've done that, act on it. Do your best. Do your absolute best in everything in life, and then let go. Leave the rest to God. We give it everything we've got, and we leave the rest to God. There's a pastor named Francis Chan. I talk about him a lot. He points out how paralyzed people are in churches today. Every week we consume knowledge more and more every week, like food. We do a Bible study, and we're like, Bible study, right? And then we consume a sermon, and we're like, this is good, that's a good sermon. And then we read a Christian book, and we're and eat that. And then we listen to a podcast, and we eat and we eat and we eat. But our biggest need is not more food. We need to work off the food we have already eaten. We don't need another feast on doctrine. We need to work off the teachings we have already consumed. So many of us, we won't do anything outside our comfort zone unless God steps out of the clouds to tell us, go do that. We are so afraid of doing the wrong thing that we default to negligence. Francis Chan says, why don't we default to action until God comes out of the cloud to tell us to stop? Do our best. Trust God for the rest. We cannot know the actions of God, who knows all things. 9 years ago, I asked my best friend to become my wife. If I had waited for the perfect moment, I'd still be standing down by that river, and we'd be really late for that party. We cannot know how far the ripples of our actions will go. All we can do is dive in head first and trust God for the rest of it. There's a Matthew West song. I can't remember. I think it's called All In. And one of the lines is, what you find is that safe is just another word for regret. And that just rattles around in my head every time I hear that song. So I'll leave you with this. May you stop waiting for the perfect moment in whatever you do. May you give it all over to God, plant your seeds, and let Him perfect every moment. Amen.